And there it is. The markets are officially closed on this Wednesday, July 22nd. Welcome, investors and traders. I'm AJ Monte with StickyTrades. And I'm going to tell you, put on your seatbelt because in this very short half-hour broadcast, we're going to cover a lot of information. We're going to look at some ticker symbols. We're going to talk strategy. And we're also going to talk about the big concern that at least we have here at StickyTrades over the rate hikes that we're about to see in Japan through the Bank of Japan, which could put a big hurting on the market. Many of you know what the carry trade is, but for those who don't, we'll explain that to you in very simple language and help you out with that. Before we get into the charts, I'm going to bring on Nod from our Nod Live newsfeed. He puts out all the relevant information and very timely information and news to our members as we trade throughout the day in the market. So Nod, why don't we start off with some of your headlines, and then we'll work into some of the other things, especially with the two top big name stocks that are coming out with earnings here any minute.
You've got that right. We're going to get interrupted very quickly. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. Good afternoon. We do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. The S&P and Dow were relatively unchanged today, pressured by a rise in oil prices as investors looked ahead to another busy round of corporate earnings, which are coming out as I speak. Traders have kept their eye on oil as they fear that this will keep consumer goods prices elevated, which may lead the Federal Reserve to raise rates. Earnings taking center stage as I speak with reports due. Some are going to be in service now. IBM, Tesla, Texas Instruments, and Google. We're going to get those earnings. I'll pull those up as soon as I have a better read on them. But the weekly mortgage applications showed that 30-year money ticked up to 6.69%, which is an 11-month high, up from 6.65%. And applications were down slightly. U.S. housing foreclosures rose 21% in early 2026, and the timeline to lose your home hit a 13-year high. And Florida posted the nation's highest foreclosure rate, which means 1 out of every 373 homes were filing for foreclosure. And AJ, I do want to just jump into this because Texas Instruments did just post their earnings. That's a big one, TXN, and that's going to follow with several more. I know we want to talk about the Bank of Japan and SpaceX, but if you want to get right after it on the charts, that'd be great.
Yeah, look at Texas Instruments here. They immediately punished it.
Right.
Look at that. They punished it in the first minute. Now, be careful, folks. Anyone who's trying to trade in the after hours, you could get burned. But I would not be surprised if you see this thing rally here in the rest of this minute and a couple of minutes. A lot of times they'll push it down in an effort to try to buy it if they think that the earnings are not so bad. Now, of course, we don't know what the conference call is going to sound like when they finally get to their investors. But you can see here this big red candle as soon as the news came out, and now they're trying to rally this up. You see, there's the first full minute of this green candle. It's known as a bullish Marabuzo. So you're probably going to see the next minute go higher. Now, this is live. This isn't any kind of recorded magic trick or anything. So I think you're going to start to see this one go a little bit higher. And then you're going to see the volatility begin as they try to trade in the after hours, because we already have, looks to me like a 25-point price swing here. Right. 25 points in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. It's gone up and down by 25-point range. And so that's going to be interesting. Now, we also have Google and what is it, Tesla, I think?
Yeah, Google and Tesla are next. Yeah, we have about $6 trillion in earnings coming up. That used to be a lot of money.
Yeah, so these are the big names that they tend to push around in the after hours.
And AJ, so, Google did just come out as well. If you want to pull that up, if you don't mind, GOOGL.
Yeah, and we'll probably see the same big candles here in a minute. So look at that big wide range. So here we have, that's about a 12 to 15 point range. Then this one doesn't look like it's being manipulated in any way by the institutions, because you could see that it's just going sideways for the past 5 minutes. I don't expect any great things here, but we're just looking at the charts minute by minute. We're not giving you any kind of fundamental information. We didn't even tell you what the earnings were based on expectations, but we are traders and we follow the technical charts so that our members could properly position themselves ahead of where the money is going, or whether or not the money's coming out of a stock. We'll look to take some put positions. We'll talk a little bit about our strategies, especially in what we did here today in SpaceX and also in CoreWeave. We took a massive profit today in CoreWeave, and we'll talk about that one. Do we have anything in Tesla yet? TSLA?
Not yet, but I'll make sure I reach out. They did this last time.
Because something just happened. They just tried to push it down. See, so someone knew something. So about a minute ago, they did the same thing. We might even see a similar pattern here in what we saw in Texas Instruments, where this big red candle is the big push to try to get it to a level where they can buy it. We'll see if it rallies back up to the unchanged level. But here we have about a 5-point drop from the close already, and they're still trying to put some pressure on that one. So, speaking of pressure, Nod, I want to jump right to CL, which is this is the crude. This is the light sweet crude futures contract. Now, you and I have had that conversation beginning of June and right up until the end of June, where and through your reports, many people were looking at the oil markets and saying, man, what a great short this is at these levels. And we took the opposite side of that argument, and we said, well, I wouldn't be surprised to see crude in the low to mid 80s. Here we are today. We closed, got a high of actually 88.61, closed at 86.32. Now, for our technical traders out there, I'm going to tell you this candle right here is let me get rid of that little screen there. This candle here is known as a shooting star. Okay, a shooting star is a smaller body candle. It doesn't matter what color it is, but when you see long shadow, which is that vertical line above the candle, that tends to be bearish. So I think you're going to see some pressure on oil. I don't think it's going to drop all the way back down to $70, but I certainly think you could drop 5% from here, maybe a little bit more, and back down to around 81, maybe $82. Now remember, the shooting star is bearish. Look back here. See, there's one. It looks almost identical to this candle, except that it's a different color. Like I said, the body does not have to be green or red for it to be bearish. It just has to have that long shadow on top of that candle at the end of an upward leg, and that tends to be bearish because that tells us that the buyers tried to push the stock up to a new high, but the sellers came in with force and pushed all those buyers back, and that's why it closed off the highs. And because we have an increase in volume today, it tells us that there's a battle going on at that high. So to stick my neck out as I usually do, you're probably going to see, keep your eye on this, folks, even if you don't trade it, /CL. Watch that one tomorrow, and you're probably going to see a lower volume day tomorrow and possibly a lower high coming in tomorrow. That's usually what you see, like you saw back here with that shooting star. So the lower high coming in right after that shooting star showed up.
AJ, let me cut you off. Tesla came out. The earnings per share was 33 cents versus 51. The initial down move is down about 10 or 12 bucks in the after hours.
Yeah, and I don't know if the institution is going to try to push this down to buy it because they're already long it. And so, this is going to be really interesting. But look at that massive sell come in here. Now, Tesla's one of the mega cap stocks. So if this stays lower, I mean, you might see a little bit of a bounce here with this bullish engulfing right here. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. See this bullish engulfing? It's a big green candle. Now we still have how many more? We got 3 seconds, and that'll hold as a bullish engulfing, and that usually is going to give us a higher low, higher high coming in. So we're starting to see a little bit of a bounce. Again, if you're intraday trading, it's trading around 364, 365 right now. You might get a $5 trade out of that if it goes up to that moving average. That's a 20-minute moving average. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw a little line, and we'll take a look at that towards the end of the program here. I think you're going to see this right up around 369 in the next couple of minutes. So we'll keep that on there, and we'll look at that one later. But going back to crude, you have to understand that this war in Iran, they call it a conflict, they call it whatever they want to call it. It's a war. People are dying. Missiles are being launched. That's going to continue to put pressure and even add volatility to the oil markets. And so if you're an option trader, understand that the volatility will most likely increase in the short-term option months, which gives you an opportunity to put on spreads at a cheaper level, because the spread is when you buy one side, sell the other. The side that you're selling is now pumped up with volatility, so you're bringing in more money on the sell side, which makes the spread cheaper. So as volatility goes up, these spreads get cheaper. So like I said, we're going to have a lot to talk about here, folks. So keep your ticker symbols ready towards the end of the day as well. And we're going to take a look at some of your charts. Now, we have to, I mean, here we are with 30% into our show here today already. The big story that I think is not getting enough attention right now is coming out of the Bank of Japan, where they're basically putting a dire warning out to the world that billions of people are going to be affected by what's about to happen with interest rates. Now, I don't mean to scare anybody, but listen, you can make money on the way down too. And we've seen what the Japanese yen carry trade can do to our markets. But before we get into that, let's define, for those who are not really aware or familiar with the Japanese carry trade, let me just say this. For years, you could borrow money in Japan for basically no interest, and in fact, negative interest rates. What is negative? Let's put a scenario together. Imagine you take a car loan out, and you got a car loan with negative interest rates. What does that mean for your payment?
They're paying me to have my car.
Exactly. So you borrow money, and in the end, you have to pay less of that money back. I mean, let that soak in. That's actually has been the case for years in Japan. So the institutions and high-end investors especially, they will borrow money, get paid to borrow the money, and then what do they do with that money? They bring it on over to the U.S. market, where they get a higher yield, a much higher yield. So what happens is, while money is cheap to borrow in Japan, the spread between the loan amount and what they're making in capital gains is quite wide. Okay. But here's what happens when the Bank of Japan starts raising their rates, right? It starts to push the cost of borrowing way up. And now what's happening is the leverage that they once had is no longer there. So now the pressure is on the U.S. market as investors, banks, and institutions now sell out of their U.S. equity position to pay off their yen, which is now costing them more money to borrow. So we saw this happen in the past. It was quite dramatic. It was short-lived. But this time, I think it's going to be a little bit different, because the Bank of Japan is, like I said, they're putting a warning out, and they're getting very, very aggressive. Now, I think you have a slide of what that interest rate, the terms look like. You have a slide of how this thing has been going vertical. Look at this.
Yes, I mean, their bonds are going parabolic. And again, just to calm this down, what's interesting is they're raising rates, but they're devaluing their currency. So it's very unconventional, and it's causing issues. And so this exact combination, AJ, happened in 2024. And if you remember, in August of 2024, when they did the same thing, when they intervened with the yen while we're raising rates, the S&P crashed 8% in just 3 days. Now, I'm not making a prediction, but just an observation of when they did this exact same thing last time. But look at the steepness of the hike in their rates, even their 30-year of where it is. What that did to our equity market was fast and furious.
Now, you have to also understand that it's going to be very difficult for them to hike rates and then devalue their currency, because what's going to happen is you're most likely going to see massive inflation over there. Now, I have a niece who lives in Japan and has another 2 years of her tour of duty. Her husband is in the military there, stationed, and she's been telling me how expensive things have been getting, even on base, right? Even on base when you're still buying in U.S. dollars. So there's going to be, I think, more headlines coming out over time. But you have to understand that the institutions are not going to say, hey, folks, let's get on CNBC and warn everyone of what's going to happen. Let's help everyone get out of their equity positions before they get hurt. No, we all know that doesn't happen. But today there was a podcast where Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of here we go, Jamie Dimon, and the Wells Fargo CEO went head to head, where Jamie Dimon is taking a bearish position, right? And Wells Fargo is taking a bullish position. So these two CEOs are going head to head. Now, there's a lot of money at stake here. So I think we're going to see a lot of volatility at the top. You know, when you have JP Morgan, all of a sudden they're starting to sell out because they don't want to have egg on their face if they just told everyone the markets are going lower. And then Wells Fargo, it's going to be an interesting trade-off to see how much of JP Morgan's position Wells Fargo is going to take if they're they're so bullish. So I have to keep an eye on the option markets there. So yeah, it's going to be real interesting here, folks.
Yeah,
so,
I want to bring one more to your attention. We talked about the parabolic downside move in IBM. IBM just reported their earnings now, and they're having a nice lift in the after hours. But let's keep that in perspective of where it came from and where it's going now. I mean, this is probably your classic dead cat bounce, right, AJ?
Well, look at this. In the after hours here, IBM has already hit up there around 216. Now, for our members, I have an upside target on this one right here at 226, which was put out during one of our rapid fire sessions. For those who are joining us for the first time, you see these diagonal lines that I have on my chart. Those are forecast lines. So this was a two-part forecast where I said I think we're going to drop first, later to be followed by a higher price action. So we already hit the downside target. I think we will most likely tomorrow, especially after what we're seeing now with the stock trading 213 and after hours, you know, up $8. I think you're going to start to see that pivot take place. Now, we have a lot going on in not just the after hours here with earnings, but in silver. For those of you who have been following my silver trades, today we hit my upside target on PSLV. Again, you new folks, look at the diagonal lines. These are my price forecasts. When I draw lines on these charts, at the time I draw those lines, there is no price action. So you could see here all the way to the left that this downside target hit, and then it continued to go down. Then what did I do? I put another downside target that hit. Then I did a two-parter. That one hit on the upside. Then today we hit this one on the upside. Now, for those who are trading silver, I have covered calls in SLV, and I think we're going to see PSLV, SLV, and the mining stocks start to pull back from here. Not a major pullback, but I'm just giving you a FYI, kind of a heads up that if you have a position, this would be a good day, or tomorrow could be a good day, and possibly bringing in some cash if you're trading the wheel strategy. If you go back a couple of weeks and look at our recordings, we described to you what that wheel strategy is all about. It's an income generation strategy where you're taking stocks that you would not mind owning for the long haul and selling covered calls against them, collecting premium. If the stock gets called away, you then sell cash secured puts to try to get the stock back. I know I'm saying it quickly, but that's a wheel strategy. Come on over to StickyTrades and you can learn more about that. And it's been working absolutely great, because every time you take money from the market, what are you doing with that? In SLV, I'll show you exactly what I'm doing with it. Every time I take cash from the market by selling calls, I go in, take the money that was given to me by the market, and I go back and I buy more SLV. There you go. I now have free stock with the money that I collected from the market. And we do that month after month after month. And it's a great way to lower your cost basis on any position. Again, if you're willing to hold the position. Okay. So Nod, we're more than halfway through this program here. Thank you for the JP Morgan hint there. Yeah. Thank you for that. I had a brain fart there for a second, but we got ticker symbols showing up in the chat. And I want to also, as we're getting these ticker symbols, I want to show our audience the percentage of accuracy, which we do every Wednesday. I go through the rapid fire stock analysis with our members. And if you go to the bottom here, in 5 trading days, just 5 trading days, 50% of our positions have already hit their targets. That's very high. It's way above average. And if I scroll through here, you can see the ones that have hit, the ones that are still open. Going back 10 days, you could see that 50%, which is still high over 10 days. 50% of those targets have hit. If I go back a little bit further, you'll see it jumps to 74% of the targets that week were hit. Out of 50 stocks, 37 of them hit their targets. I'm not going to bore you with this. I'm just going to go back one more week. If I go back more, this is now 20 trading days. This forecast list came 20 trading days ago. 84% of those targets have hit. And if you remember, back on that day, we had Jazz, who's a swag winner, and Elise, who's also a swag winner, because their targets hit. But if you remember from that show and go back and listen to it, we were talking about buying the September 105 calls on NEM, right? The 105 calls for 460. Had you done that, you would have hit a home run, absolute home run. And for Elise, we were talking about buying calls in December for BRZE, which is Braze. And had you done that, you would have been up over 40% on that trade. Now, these are not recommendations or advice that we're giving you. I'm just showing you the hard evidence in case there's any skeptics out there say, you guys don't hit your price targets. We're hitting price targets better than anyone in the industry, and we're showing you the evidence each and every week. And if you want to continue to track our progress and even trade along with us, go to that scan code right at the bottom there. We got a 15-day trial to StickyTrades, no strings attached, no credit cards needed. Just go right there, the ultimate bundle. Take your phone and scan that code and come on over. You still have enough time to join us tonight at 6 o'clock if you want to submit a couple of ticker symbols there. So there we go. We got some more ticker symbols now coming in on the chat. Why don't you just start naming them off and we'll
Fireman, so Dan Landemar is looking for UNG. He says it's looking good with regards to energy. We'd love your thoughts, please.
Oh, I love that one. I love it. Yeah. So here's a good one that has hit targets quite nicely. So back in April, we had a target. And by the way, our members know this already, but if you're brand new to what happens when these targets hit, it is not uncommon at all to see a stock, once it hits the target, prices generally reverse from my target fill prices. That's because when I set targets, I usually set them at resistance if it's a higher target, or I set it at support if it's a lower target. Now with this one, we do have a slightly higher volume day today. And who is this one? Who submitted this one for us?
This is Dan Landemar.
Dan? Okay, Dan, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go a little bit higher here up to where the moving average is going to be. Because, see, the stock is down below the moving average, and the moving average is going to be a resistance area. So it's still coming down as the stock is trading below that moving average. So if you were trading this, and let's say you bought it this morning at around 10.5, I would be pumping this thing out at the resistance right up here at that target, which is going to be 1088. Now, it doesn't sound like much, but percentage-wise, on cheap stocks, those could be nice little trades, especially if you're trading options on those. So let's say, okay, 1088, that's only going to be 22 cents higher or 28 cents higher. What can I do with that? Well, if you went into the option markets and you went out and you said, okay, I want to buy a September call, you could turn around and buy the $11 calls for 57, maybe 58 cents. You see that? And if it goes up, close to 30 cents, you're going to make better than 10% on that option trade. So you get more leverage on the options by going out and trading the longer term options, not the short term options, because buying the short term options could get you in trouble. Like I said, Put on your seatbelt because we got a lot of information coming out.
We got a lot more. So Russ is joining us from Canada, and he's reminding us that FCX has earnings tomorrow, but he says it's worth a look because of their warrant cancellation. What do you think?
Well, there you go. I have my upside target. See how nicely it's moving up towards my upside target. I have an upside target $1 higher from here, and I do believe tomorrow could be the day we hit that. Now, again, this is going to be falling under the mining sector, right? Metals and mining companies, although they focus on copper. You're going to have tons of resistance up here, right around 68. So if you're long that stock, I could say it this way. I can't give you advice, but if I were long this stock or long calls on this stock, I'd be getting out of that position on any drop in volume in this area up here. I'd be taking my profits and I'd be banking those profits, and then I'd be ready to watch the stock drop to the next support level, which would be a gap fill down here. So this is a great little stock to be trading because it's got a nice little range, about $11 range between support and resistance up here. And again, throw the option markets in there. You can get some nice leverage without putting your whole account at risk. So I'm going to keep that upside target on that one at 66, and we'll see if that hits tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. Udar is bringing up SpaceX. So today, Schaefer Research called it a broken IPO, and because in his round trip is now trading well below the IPO price. Where are you on SpaceX, please?
I wonder what took them so long to make that call, huh? No, we were. I mean, we're laughing, and I know there's a lot of people that are crying. Absolutely. But our members have a very profitable, right now it's very profitable diagonal calendar put spread. But today, I can't give you the details, but today we added positive delta onto this one because they're coming up on earnings. Now, this is theory, of course, and why I'm willing to take a positive delta or longer position is because we already have a short position, so it's not going to hurt us if we go a little long. And number two, Elon Musk is going to be having the biggest egg fest on his face if they don't come out with some positive news after this company has gone public. He's going to do whatever it takes to make that story sound great. Even if it's not great, they're going to make it sound great. And I think we're going to get some sort of a pop here. Now, I don't have a big upside target on SpaceX, but I do have an upside target of 146.74. At that point, I think you're going to see an about face, roll reversal kick in, and then resistance will most likely start to push the stock lower. But I think for the short term, we can see a little bit of a bounce here. And Elon Musk, I'm sure he's thinking about this. Believe me, he's not walking away with an extra $1 trillion in his bank account and hoping that no one finds out, right?
No,
he's going to do something good about that. Okay.
All right, let's go with Carlos. Carlos is looking for DRAM. DRAM, please.
DRAM. I don't have a position in this, and this is a fairly new stock, but here's one I'd be going downside on because you got this is an ABCD pattern here. What is an ABCD pattern? Well, let me just show you what that is. Here's a pivot, so I'll put A right there. It pivoted up yesterday, but I'm putting the B at the bottom of this down leg here. So there's your AB. Today it pivoted down with a lower high, lower low. So we have a C. I could even go so far to go down here, but for the sake of option traders and giving them a more conservative target, I would say downside target on that was going to be around 51.62. So you've got about, what is that, about $6 and change to the downside, which is better than 10% of that stock. And so taking the way I would trade that, I can only tell you how I would trade it. I would probably sell out of the money call spreads on that and just taking high probability trades for the cash. I don't even know if I would go directional on this one because I could just tell you from the looks of that chart, the volatility is going to be really high on this one. Yeah, look at that. The volatility on the front month options are over 100%. So it's a lot harder to go directional in a stock like that when the volatility is so high because the premium gets so pumped up. It's hard to maintain a good steady flow because if the stock just stalls out, the volatility gets crushed and you can lose money even if you're right with the direction. So I still have a downside target on that of 51.62. We'll make note of that one. If that one hits, we'll send some swag your way. Don't worry. We've been doing a good job with target hits. So we'll get you one of the mugs or one of the tumblers from our store and send it on over to you. So Nod, with 1 minute left, what do you got? And then we're going to wrap things here.
Our friend Tafe would love Micron. Revisit MU for Tafe, please.
Oh, man, our VIPs are raking in the cash with this one. I'm going to go a little bit lower on Micron. This has done a great job hitting targets. Again, remember I showed you what the targets look like there. Hits a target, what happened? It reversed. Look at that. Hits my target, reversed just a little bit there, and then came back down. Hit the target, hit the upside target. I would go downside on Micron. Now, our VIPs have a put spread on this So I would. It doesn't look like much here, folks, but I'm going to go down to this gap fill. Micron, I would put that at 898, 898. So it's trading 959. So you got that little tick mark there. That could be a nice little option trade then. There. So 898 on Micron, and I think that's a high probability target. I wouldn't be surprised to see that even hit maybe even tomorrow. We'll have to see. All right, Nod, we're going to have to wrap this one up. And folks, I got to tell you that we're having a great time over here at Sticky Trades. We have very little attrition, if any. That's because our members are having a great time. And if you want to join us and be part of this great culture that we have, come on over, try the free trial. And worst case, at least stay in touch with us through the YouTube channel. Ask us questions, submit ticker symbols. And until then, we'll see you on the next report. Thanks, Nod. Talk to you later. All right.